My story is so insanely unbelievable that I almost never share it. However, in 2008, I was living on my own in a two-bed flat in Swansea, UK. I was there as a student, and the person who was supposed to have the second floor dropped out at the last moment, so I ended up subletting the room to help cover the bills. The first person I let to was a 6'2" Estonian man in his early 50s called Erwin, who was in Swansea doing a master in maritime law. But after a few beers, he'd often get to talking. One evening, after he got back from the gym, a friend and I were watching TV and he said,
"Do you want to see something cool?"
He came back from his room, cracked open a beer, and started telling us about his youth and was showing us pictures of the places he'd been, the ships he had served on, etc. It was all pretty neat, especially the letter of recommendation from the former chief of the Soviet Navy. That seemed a bit out of place at first, because from what we'd seen, he'd been mostly involved in fairly normal stuff, and didn't seem to have a high rank. Then he got to the good stuff, as he called it. It was an album full of photos of him in his early 20s, posing with numerous objects that I can only say were UAP or UMPs. The first few photos were clearly of a disc-shaped craft being retrieved from the ocean onto the ship by a crane. There were other photos from various crash sites in the Arctic and in the forest. In all, he showed us around 50 photos with about 10 different craft in them. He said he'd been part of a specialist reconnaissance and recovery unit, and that these were just the few he'd been allowed to photograph, but that he had seen up to 20 more similar sites, and even on an occasion he saw a fully intact disc. He also said that none of the vehicles had been manned by any living beings, but were rather more like the drones we have nowadays. We asked why he'd been allowed to take the photos. Wasn't this supposed to be a secret? He said that his officers had made it clear that because the state was in charge of the media, there was no chance of the photos making it into the press, and nobody in the West would ever believe them either. My former flatmate was in the Soviet Navy, and showed me photos of himself with the remains of various craft, at various different scenes. I wish this was a wind-up, but I know exactly what I saw, and it was all legitimate. It was around 10 p.m., and my little brother was chilling at my house. Well, it was getting late, so I was bringing him back to my dad's house. My dad lives out in the country outside of the town that I live in, so we had to take a back road to get into the highway. Well, anyway, we were just talking, and I see this star. Well, it looks like a star. It's brighter than all the other stars. I don't see anything, but yeah, I know it's unusual. The more we drive, it's getting brighter and brighter, and I'm like, yo, do you see that? It was very obvious, and my brother was like, yeah.
"What the fuck is that?"
So we start joking that it's an asteroid about to hit Earth. Well, it gets very bright, man. Not as bright as the sun, but almost like a spotlight from a helicopter shining directly at us. We get on the highway, and there's this line of trees across the highway, and I just stop at the stop sign before getting on the highway watching, and it's moving slow, and it's not very high in the air at all, and we kind of panic. No idea why, we are just uncomfortable because this thing is like right there. There's nobody around neither, no other cars because we are out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm like, fuck this. So I get on the highway and I head to this truck stop that isn't too far from us because I just want to be near other people. While I'm hauling ass, my brother rolls the window down and is sticking his head out of the window and keeps saying,
"Oh my god. Oh my god."
And I'm like, what? Because I'm driving and I can't see and it's on his side. So I'm like trying to drive and I roll my window down and I kind of stick my head out and I look up and it's a fucking triangle shaped craft. Yo, my brothers, I'm not lying. It was huge. Like maybe the size of 3 huge airliners with a white bluish light in the middle, and it's just passing over us really slow. And I'm like trying to drive and not crash and watch this thing just fly right over us, maybe 100 feet above us. And when it's over us, it covers most of the sky that's right above us. So you see a lot of the details in it. It was fucking scary. We pull into the truck stop, we get out, and we watch it fly away slow and never see it again. We have been talking about it ever since. I mean, it was huge, and I don't know where the initial light was coming from when we saw it from farther away. The underside of it was creepy, like straight out of a movie. I'm a believer now. I saw an unidentified flying object, thing, or creature in my backyard last month, and I can't find any explanation as for what it could be. I was inside of our house finishing up some work, but I could see my boyfriend and our dog in the backyard through the back door window. Suddenly, I hear our dog barking. As I glance up to observe what was unnerving her, I realize that it's something flying alongside the back of our 10-foot high fence. Quickly, I open the back door and I walk out into our patio. The creature was completely silent and looked like a straight yellow with a gold line that was hovering maybe 5 to 6 feet in the air and moving in a precise, straight formation. And let me tell you, this thing was fast. My dog is a greyhound mix and extremely agile, and even she couldn't keep up with it. It was a little less than a foot long, a centimeter or two thick. I couldn't tell if it was glowing, or if it was just the combination of the glow from our backyard lights and its golden tone. It gave off this illusion. Because it was flying, and clearly much faster than my dog, it wasn't acting like it was trying to evade danger. I had the feeling that it was fairly intelligent. It was almost playing with my dog, like it was playing a game of tag. It flew back and forth 4 to 5 times in a straight line, about 20 to 30 miles per hour. My dog attempted to catch it, running at it as it moved to the opposite side of the fence. But once she started to catch up, it would start flying in the opposite direction, without ever having to turn around. It flew in a smooth, unwavering manner, like when you point a laser at the wall and move it back and forth to get your cat's attention. Obviously, I wanted to get this on video, or at least a picture, but I wanted to get a closer look because my mind needed an explanation. As I moved closer, it quickly flew over our fence and I never saw it again, but I could hear the bustling of leaves around the side of our house. After it was gone, I looked at my boyfriend and his face said it all. I asked him what he saw, to confirm that my mind wasn't simply playing tricks. His experience was the same as mine. We both have been looking for this thing every night since we've seen it, but to no avail. We still have no idea what this unexplained creature could be. If I'm unable to come up with an explanation, or even a plausible theory regarding to what we saw that night, I think it's going to bother me for the rest of my life.